Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We'll continue our reading from chapter 26 onwards from the Nectar of Devotion by Srila Prabhupada. Originally Bhakti-rasāmṛta-sindhu by Rūpa Gosvāmī. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhete girim yatkripātamam vande shrim gurudim tarinam Paramanand Madhavam Shri Chaitanyeshwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. Stimulation for ecstatic love, chapter 26. Some things which give impetus or stimulation to ecstatic love of Krishna are his transcendental qualities, his uncommon activities, his smiling features, his apparel and garlands, his flute, his buffalo horn, his leg bells, his conch shells, his footprints, his places of pastime such as Vrindavan, his favorite plant Tulsi, his devotee, and his periodical occasions for remembering him. One such occasion for remembering is Ekadashi, which comes twice a month on the 11th day of the moon, both waning and waxing. On the day of all the devotees remain fasting throughout the night and continuously chant the glories of the Lord. Krishna's transcendental qualities, his uncommon activities, and his smile. As far as Krishna's transcendental qualities are concerned, they can be divided into three groups: qualities pertaining to his transcendental body, qualities pertaining to his transcendental speech, and qualities pertaining to his transcendental mind. Krishna's age, his transcendental bodily features, his beauty, and his mildness are qualities pertaining to his body. There is no difference between Krishna and his body, and therefore the transcendental features pertaining to his body are the same as Krishna himself. But because these qualities stimulate the devotee's ecstatic love, they have been analyzed as separate causes of that love. To be attracted by the qualities of Krishna means to be attracted by Krishna himself, because there is no real distinction between Krishna and his qualities. Krishna's name is also Krishna, Krishna's fame is also Krishna, Krishna's entourage is also Krishna. Krishna and everything related with Krishna which gives stimulation to love of Krishna are all Krishna. But for our understanding, these items may be considered separately. Krishna is the reservoir of all transcendental pleasure. Therefore, the impetuses to love of Krishna, although seemingly different, are not actually distinct from Krishna himself. In the technical Sanskrit terms such as qualities, as Krishna's name and fame are accepted both as reservoirs of and as stimulation for love of Krishna. Krishna's age is considered in three periods. From his appearance day to the end of his 5th year is called Kumar, and from the beginning of the 6th year up to the end of the 10th year is called Paganda, and from the 11th to the end of 15th year is called Kashur. After the beginning of the 16th year, Krishna is called a Yauvan or a youth, and this continues with no change. As far as Krishna's transcendental pastimes are concerned, they are mostly executed during the Kaumar, Paganda, and Kashor periods. His affectionate pastimes with his parents are executed during his Kaumar age. His friendship with his cowherd boys is exhibited during the Paganda period, and his friendship with the gopis is exhibited during the age of Kashor. Krishna's pastimes at Vrindavan are finished by the end of his 15th year, and he is transferred to Mathura and Dwarka, where all other pastimes are performed. Srila Rūpa Gosvāmī gives us vivid description of Krishna as the reservoir of all pleasure in his Bhakti-rasāmṛta-sindhu. Here are some parts of that description. Krishna's Kashor age may be divided into three parts. In the beginning of his Kashor age, that is at the beginning of his 11th year, the luster of his body becomes so bright that it becomes an impetus for ecstatic love. Similarly, there are reddish borders around his eyes and growth of soft hairs on his body. In describing this early stage of his Kashor age, Kundalata, one of the residents of Vrindavan, said to her friend, "My dear friend, I have just seen an extraordinary beauty appearing in the person of Krishna. His blackish bodily hue appears just like the Indraneel jewel. There are reddish signs on his eyes, and small soft hairs are coming out on his body. The appearance of these symptoms has made them extraordinarily beautiful." In this connection, in the 10th canto, 21st chapter, verse 5 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadev Goswami tells King Parikshit, "My dear king, I shall try to describe how the minds of gopis became absorbed in thought of Krishna. The gopis would meditate on Krishna's dressing himself just like the dancing actor and entering the forest of Vrindavan, marking the grounds with his footprints. They meditated on Krishna's having a helmet with a peacock feather and wearing earrings on his ears and yellow gold colored garments covered with jewels and pearls. They also meditated on Krishna's blowing his flute and on all the cowherd boys singing of the glories of the Lord. That is the description of the meditation which the gopis used to perform. Sometimes the gopis would think about his soft nails, his moving eyebrows, and his teeth, which were cashew colored. Don't know how to say this word. Catechu colored from chewing pan. One description was given by Gopi to her friend, my dear friend, just see how the enemy of Aga has assumed such a wonderful features. His brows are just like the brows of Cupid, and they are moving just as though they were dancing. The tips of his nails are so soft, it is as if they were dried bamboo leaves. His teeth are reddish, and so it appears that he has assumed a feature of anger under the circumstances. Where is the chance for a young girl not to be attracted by such beautiful features and not to be afraid of becoming a victim to such beauty? Krishna's attractive features are also described by Vrinda, the gopi after whom Vrindavan was named. She told Krishna, my dear Madhav, your newly invented smile has so captivated the hearts of the gopis that they are simply unable to express themselves. As such, they have become bewildered and will not talk with others. All of these gopis have become so affected that it is as if they had offered 3 sprinkles of water upon their lives. In other words, they have given up all hope for their living condition. According to the Indian system, when a person is dead, there is a sprinkling of water on the body. Thus, the statement of Vrinda shows the gopis were so enchanted by the beauty of Krishna that because they could not express their minds, they had decided to commit suicide. When Krishna arrived at the age of 13 to 14 years, his 2 arms and chest assumed an unspeakable beauty, and his whole form became simply enchanting. When Krishna attained 13 years of age, his 2 thighs were challenging the trunks of elephants. His rising chest was trying to come to peace with doors of jewels, and his 2 arms were minimizing the value of the bolts found on doors. Who can describe the wonderful beauty of these features of Krishna? The special beauty of Krishna's body was his mild smiling, his restless eyes, and his world-enchanting songs. These are the special features of this age. There is a statement in this connection that Krishna, on arriving at this age, manifested such beautiful bodily features that his restless eyes became the playthings of Cupid, and his mild smile resembled the newly grown lotus flower. The enchanting vibration of his songs became a great impediment to the young girls who were supposed to remain chaste and faithful to their husbands. At this age, Krishna enjoyed the Rasa Leela, exhibiting his power of joking with the cowherd girls and enjoying their company in the bushes of the gardens by the bank of the Yamuna. In this connection, there is the following statement: throughout the whole tract of land known as Vrindavan, there were the footprints of Krishna and gopis, and in some places peacocks were strewn out. In some places there were nice beddings in the bushes of the Vrindavan gardens, and in some places there were piles of dust due to the group dancing of Govinda and the gopis. These are some of the features which are due to the different pastimes invented by Krishna in the place known as Vrindavan. There is the following statement by one gopi describing Krishna's attractive feature during this age. My dear friend, just see how all of a sudden in the sky of Krishna there is a powerful rising sun, and how this rising sun is minimizing the ray of our chastity moon. Our attraction for Krishna is so intense that it is drying up the lotus flower of our discrimination, and we're losing our senses in deciding whether we shall continue as a chaste women, or be victimized by the beauty of Krishna. My dear friend, I think that we have lost all our hope. Hope of life. In the Kashore age, beginning from the 11th year and continuing to the end of the 15th year, Krishna's arms, legs, and thighs became marked with 3 divisional lines. At that time, Krishna's chest challenged a hill of market jewels. His arms challenged pillars of the Indraneel jewel. The 3 lines of his waist challenged the waves of the river Yamuna, and his thighs challenged beautiful bananas. One gopi said, with these exquisite features of his body, Krishna is too extraordinarily beautiful, and therefore I am always thinking of him to protect me because he is the killer of all demons. The idea expressed in this statement is that the gopis were comparing their attraction for Krishna to an attack by demons, and to counteract their attraction for the beauty of Krishna, they were also turning to Krishna hopefully because he is the killer of all kinds of demons. In other words, they were perplexed because on one hand they were attracted by the beauty of Krishna, and on the other hand they needed Krishna to drive away this demon of such attraction. The Kishore age can be translated as adolescence. At the end of this period, all the gopis said Krishna is the killer of the attraction of Cupid, and as such he disturbs the patience of newly married girls. Krishna's bodily features have become so exquisite, it is as if they were all manifesting an artistic sense of the highest sort. His dancing eyes have dimmed the brilliance of the most expert dancer, and so there is no longer any comparison to the beauty of Krishna. Learned scholars therefore describe the features of his body at this time as Navyavan, newly invented youthfulness. At this stage of Krishna's bodily features, the conjugal love affairs with the gopis and similar pastimes become very prominent. There are 6 features of conjugal love affairs, called peacemaking, picking a quarrel, going to meet one's lover, sitting together, separation, and support. Lord Krishna expanded an empire of these 6 features, of which he was the ruling prince. Somewhere he was picking quarrels with the young girls, somewhere he was scratching them with the nails of parrots, somewhere he was busy going to visit the gopis, and somewhere he was negotiating through the cowherd friends to take shelter of the gopis. Some of the gopis addressed him thus: Dear Krishna, because of your adolescent age, you have just become the spiritual master of these young girls, and you're teaching them to whisper among themselves. You're teaching them to offer solemn prayers, as well as training them to cheat their husbands and to join you in the gardens at night. Without caring for the instructions of their superiors, you are enthusing them by the vibration of your enchanting flute, and as the teacher, you are teaching them all the intricacies of loving affairs. It is said that even when Krishna was a boy of 5, he manifested such youthful energies, but learned scholars do not explain them because of the absence of suitable age. Krishna was beautiful because every part of his body was perfectly arranged without any defect. Such perfect bodily features of Krishna are described as follows: My dear enemy of Kamsa, your broad eyes, your rising chest, your 2 pillar-like arms, and the thin middle portion of your body are always enchanting to every lotus-eyed, beautiful girl. The ornaments on the body of Krishna were not actually enhancing his beauty, but just the reverse. The ornaments were beautified by Krishna. A person is called mild when he cannot even bear the touch of the most soft thing. It is described that every part of Krishna's body was so soft that even the touch of a newly grown leaves, the color of the touched part of his skin would change. At this Kishore age, Krishna's endeavors were always bent towards arranging the rasa dance, as well as toward killing the demons in the forest of Vrindavan. While Krishna was engaged in enjoyment with the boys and girls within the forests of Vrindavan, Kamsa used to send his associates to kill Krishna, and Krishna would show his prowess by killing them. Krishna's apparel and garlands. Generally, there are 4 kinds of garments on the body of Krishna: his shirt, turban, belt, and wearing garments. In Vrindavan, he used to put on reddish garments with a golden shirt on his body and an orange-colored turban on his head. The different kinds of belts combined with his enchanting smile used to always increase the transcendental bliss of his associates. This dress of Krishna is described as gorgeous. As a baby elephant is sometimes dressed in colorful clothing, so Krishna's gorgeousness was manifested by a decoration with such colorful clothing on the different parts of his body. Akalpa refers to the texture of Krishna's hair. His nice dressed body anointed with sandalwood pulp and decorated with flower garlands, his tilak and his chewing pan. Krishna was decorated constantly in this akalpa process. Krishna's hair was sometimes decorated with flowers placed on the middle of his head, or else it was reaching down to his back. In this way, Krishna dressed his hair differently at different times. As for the ointment on his body, the pulp of sandalwood generally appeared to be white, and when it was mixed with saffron dye, it appeared to be yellow. Krishna used to put Vaijayanti garland around his neck. This Vaijayanti garland is made up of flowers of at least 5 different colors. Such garland was always long enough to touch Krishna's knees or feet. Besides this garland of flowers, there were other kinds of flower garlands too, sometimes decorating his head, sometimes hanging around his neck and chest. Artistic paintings with the sandalwood pulp and colored sandalwood were also found to be found on the body of Krishna. One gopi addressed her friend and began to praise the bodily features of Krishna. She praised his blackish complexion. The reddish color of chewing pan can be enhanced. His beauty hundreds of times. One gopi addressed her friend and began to praise the bodily features of Krishna. She praised his blackish complexion, the reddish color of chewing pan, enhancing his beauty hundreds of times, the curling hair on his head, the kumkum red spots on his body, and the tilak on his forehead, his helmet, his earrings, his necklace, his foregarments, the bangles on his head, the rings on his fingers, his ankle bells, and his flute. These are the different features of Krishna's ornaments. Krishna, the enemy of Aga, always looked beautiful with his incomparable helmet, his earrings made of diamond, his necklace of pearls, his bangles, his embroidered garments, and the beautiful rings on his fingers. Krishna is sometimes called Vanamali. Vana means forest and Mali means gardener. The Vanamali refers to one who extensively uses flowers and garlands on different parts of his body. Krishna was dressed like this not only in Vrindavan but also on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Seeing such colorful dress and the garlands of different flowers, some great sages prayed. Lord Krishna was going to the battlefield of Kurukshetra not to fight but to grace all of the devotees with his presence. Krishna's flute. As far as his flute is concerned, it is said that the vibration of this wonderful instrument was able to break the meditation of the greatest sage. Krishna was thus challenging Cupid by advertising his transcendental glories from all over the world. There are 3 kinds of flutes used by Krishna. One of them is called Lord Krishna was going to the battlefield of Kurukshetra. I'll repeat that. Seeing such colorful dress and the garlands of different flowers, some great sages prayed. Lord Krishna was going to the battlefield of Kurukshetra not to fight but to grace all of the devotees with his presence. Krishna's flute. As far as his flute is concerned, it is said that the vibration of this wonderful instrument was able to break the meditation of the greatest sages. Krishna was thus challenging Cupid by advertising his transcendental glories all over the world. There are three kinds of flutes used by Krishna. One is called Venu, one is called Murli, and the other is called Vamsi. Venu is very small, not more than 6 inches long, with 6 holes for whistling. Murli is about 18 inches long with a hole at the end and 4 holes on the body of the flute. This kind of flute produces an enchanting sound. Murli is about 18 inches long with a hole at the end and 4 holes on the body of the flute. This kind of flute produces a very enchanting sound. The Vamsi flute is about 15 inches long with 9 holes on the body. Okay. The kind of flute produces very enchanting sound. The Vamsi flute is about 15 inches long with 9 holes on its body. Krishna used to play on these 3 flutes occasionally when they were needed. Krishna has a longer Vamsi which is called Mahananda or Sammohini. When it is still longer, it is called Akarshini. When it is even longer, it's called Anandini. The Anandini flute is very pleasing to the cowherd boys and is technically named Vamshuli. These flutes were sometimes bedecked with jewels, sometimes they were made of marble, and sometimes of hollow bamboo. When the flute is made of jewels, it is called Sammohini. When made of gold, it is called Akarshini. Krishna's buffalo horn. Krishna used the buffalo horn as a bugling instrument. This instrument was always highly polished and circled with gold bands, and on the middle there was regarding these instruments, there is a metaphorical statement about a gopi named Taravali. It is said that Taravali was bitten by the most venomous snake of Krishna's flute. Then, in order to neutralize the poisonous snake, she drank the milk produced by the buffalo horn in the hand of Krishna. But instead of defrosting this, but instead of decreasing the poisonous effect, it increased it 1,000 times. The gopi was thus put down onto the most miserable. A certain the attraction. But instead of decreasing the poisonous effect, it increased it 1,000 times. The gopi was thus put into the most miserable poisoned condition. I'll repeat that. It is said that Taravali, the gopi, was bitten by most venomous snake of Krishna's flute. Then, in order to neutralize this poisonous effect, she drank the milk produced by the buffalo horn in the hand of Krishna. But instead of decreasing the poisonous effect, it increased it 1,000 times. The gopi was thus put into the most miserable poisoned condition, the attraction of Krishna's leg balls. A certain gopi once stated to a friend, "My dear friend, when I heard the sound of the leg bells, not balls, leg bells, heard the sound of the leg bells of Sri Krishna, I immediately started to go out of the house to see him. But most regrettably, my superiors were present just before me at that time and I could not go out." Krishna's conch shell is known as Panchajanya. This Panchajanya conch is also mentioned in Bhagavad-Gita. Krishna sounded it before the battle of Kurukshetra. It is said that when Lord Krishna blows on his transcendental conch shell, the wives of the demons become subject to abortions and the wives of the demigods become blessed with all auspiciousness. In this way, the sound of Krishna's conch shell used to vibrate and circulate all over the world. Krishna's footprints. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam that Akrura, who drove Krishna from Vrindavan to Mathura, saw the footprints of Krishna on the land of Vrindavan. This ecstatic love in Krishna increased so much. His ecstatic love for Krishna increased so much that the hairs on his body stood up. His eyes became overflooded with tears, and such ecstasy, he jumped out of the chariot and fell down on the ground and began to chant. How wonderful it is! How wonderful this is! Similar feelings were expressed by the gopis when they were going to the banks of the Yamuna and saw Krishna's footprints in the dust. When Krishna walked on the ground of Vrindavan, the marks of his soul, flag, thunderbolt, fish, rod for controlling elephants, and lotus okay. When Krishna walked on the ground of Vrindavan, the marks of his soul, flag, thunderbolt, fish, a rod for controlling elephants, and a lotus flower could be imprinted upon the dust of the land. The gopis became very overwhelmed simply by seeing those marks on the ground. Krishna's places of pastimes. One devotee has exclaimed, "Oh, I have not as yet visited the wonderful places where the pastimes of Lord are performed, but simply by hearing the name of Mathura." But simply by hearing the names of Mathura, I have become overwhelmed with joy. Krishna's favorite plant, Tulsi. Lord Krishna is very fond of Tulsi leaves and buds because Tulsi buds are usually offered up to the lotus feet of Krishna. A devotee once prayed to the Tulsi buds to give him some information about the lotus feet of the Lord. The devotee expected that the Tulsi beads would know something about the glories of Lord Krishna's. Krishna is very fond of Tulsi leaves and buds because Tulsi buds are usually offered up to the lotus feet of Krishna. A devotee once prayed to the Tulsi buds to give him some information about the lotus feet of the Lord. The devotee expected that Tulsi buds would know something about the glories of the Lord's lotus feet. Krishna's devotees. One may sometimes become overwhelmed with the joy by seeing a devotee of the Lord. When Dhruv Maharaj saw two associates of Narayan approaching him, he immediately stood up out of sincere respect and devotion and remained before them. Dhruv Maharaj immediately stood up out of sincere respect and devotion and remained before him with folded hands, but because of his ecstatic love, he could hardly offer them a proper reception. There is a statement by a gopi who addressed Subala, a friend of Krishna. "My dear Subal, I know that Krishna is your friend and that you always enjoy smiling and joking with him. The other day I saw you both standing together. You were keeping your hand upon Krishna's shoulder, and both of you were joyfully smiling. When I saw the two of you standing like that in the distance, my eyes at once opened, became overwhelmed with the tears." Special days for remembering Krishna. There are many statements about the festive days in connection with Krishna's different activities. One of these festive days is Janmashtami, the day of Krishna's birth. This Janmashtami day is the most opulent festival for the devotees, and it is still observed with great pomp in every Hindu house in India. Sometimes even the devotees of other religious groups take advantage of this auspicious day and enjoy the performance of the ceremony of Janmashtami. Ecstatic love for Krishna is also aroused on the days of Ekadashi, which are other festive days in connection with Krishna. Chapter 27, Symptoms of Ecstatic Love. The bodily symptoms manifested by a devotee in expressing ecstatic love for Krishna are called anubhav. Practical examples of anubhav are as follows: dancing, rolling on the ground, singing very loudly, stretching the body, crying loudly, yawning, breathing very heavily, neglecting the presence of others, drooling, laughing like a madman, wheeling the head, and belching. When there is an extraordinary excess of ecstatic love with all these bodily symptoms manifested, one feels relieved transcendentally. These symptoms are divided into two parts. One is called Sita, Shita, and the other is called Kshepana. When there is yawning, the symptoms are called Shita, and when there is dancing, they are called Kshepana. Dancing while watching the Rasasa dance performed by Lord Krishna and the gopis, Lord Shiva beheld the beautiful face of Krishna and immediately began to dance and beat upon his small dindima drum. While Lord Shiva was dancing in ecstasy, his eldest son Ganesh joined him. Rolling on the ground in the third canto, first chapter, verse 32 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Vidur inquires from Uddhav, my dear friend, is Akrur in an auspicious condition? Not only is he a learned scholar and sinless, but he is also a devotee of Lord Krishna. He has such ecstatic love for Krishna that I have seen him rolling upon Krishna's footprints in the dust as if bereft of all sense. Similarly, one gopi gave message to Krishna that Radharani, because of her separation from him and because of her enchantment with the aroma of his flower garlands, was rolling on the ground, thereby bruising her soft body. Singing loudly, one gopi informed Krishna that when Srimati Radharani was singing about his glories, she enchanted all of her friends in such a way that they became stone-like and dull. At the same time, the nearby stones began to melt away in ecstatic love. When Narad Muni was chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, he chanted so loudly that it was apprehended that Lord Nrsimha had appeared. Thus all the demons began to flee in different directions, stretching the body. It is said that sometimes when Narad, the carrier of the Veena, remembers his Lord Krishna in great ecstasy, he begins to stretch his body so vigorously that his sacred thread gives way. Crying loudly, a gopi once said to Krishna, my dear son of Nand Maharaj, by the sound of your flute, Srimati Radharani has become full of lamentation and fear, and thus with a faltering voice she is crying like a kurari bird. It is described that by hearing the vibration of Krishna's flute, Lord Shiva becomes very puzzled and begins to cry so loudly into space that the demons become vanquished and the devotees become overwhelmed with joy. Yawning, it is said that when the full moon rises, the lotus petals become expanded. Similarly, when Krishna used to appear before Radharani, her face, which is compared to the lotus flower, would expand by her yawning. Breathing heavily. As far as breathing heavily is concerned, it is stated Lalita, one of the gopis, is just like Chataki bird, which only takes water falling directly from the rain cloud and not from any other source. In this statement, Krishna is compared to the dark cloud and Lalita is compared to the Chataki bird, seeking only Krishna's company. The metaphor continues to say, as a heavy wind sometimes disperses a mighty cloud, so the heavy breath from Lalita's nostrils caused her to miss Krishna, who had disappeared by the time she recovered herself. Neglecting the presence of others. As far as neglecting the presence of others is concerned, the wives of the Brahmanas who were performing sacrifices at Vrindavan left home as soon as they heard that Krishna was nearby. They left their homes without caring for their learned husbands. The husbands began to discuss this among themselves. How wonderful is the attraction for Krishna that it has made these women leave us without any care. This is the influence of Krishna. Anyone who becomes attracted to Krishna can be relieved from the bondage of birth and death, which can be compared to the locked up homes that were neglected by the wives of the Brahmanas. In the Padyavali, there is a statement by some devotees, we shall not care for any outsiders. If they should deride us, we shall still not care for them. We shall simply enjoy the transcendental mellow of chanting Hare Krishna, and thus we shall roll on the ground and dance ecstatically. In this way, we shall eternally enjoy transcendental bliss. Drooling. As an example of the running down of the saliva from the mouth, it is stated that sometimes when Narad Muni was chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, he remained stunned for a while and saliva oozed from his mouth, laughing like a madman. When a devotee laughs very loudly like a madman, it is done out of an extraordinary agitation of ecstatic love within the heart. Such mad laughing is an expression of the condition of the heart, which is technically called attahas. When a devotee becomes affected with this mental condition, his love is expressed through the lips. The laughing sound coming one after another are compared to flowers falling from the creeper of devotion, which grows with the heart of the devotee. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita devotional service to the Lord is also compared to a creeper which rises up to the lotus feet of Krishna in Golok Vrindavan. Wheeling of the head. One gopi told her friends, it appears that Lord Krishna, the enemy of the demon Aga, has released from his mouth a whirlwind which is acting on your head and is gradually proceeding to do the same to the other lotus-eyed gopis. Belching. Sometimes belching also becomes a symptom of the ecstatic love for Krishna. There is evidence of this in Purnamasi's address to one crying associates of Radharani. My dear daughter, don't be worried because Srimati Radharani is belching. I'm about to offer a remedial measure for this symptom. Do not cry so loudly. This belching is not due to indigestion. It is a sign of ecstatic love for Krishna. I shall arrange to cure this belching symptom immediately. Don't be worried. This statement by Purnamasi is evident that ecstatic love for Krishna is sometimes manifested through belching. Sometimes trembling of the whole body and the hemorrhaging from some part of the body are also manifested in response to ecstatic love for Krishna, but such symptoms are very rare, and therefore Srila Rūpa Gosvāmī does not discuss any further on this point. So we'll continue our reading from chapter 28 next time. Thank you for joining. Hare Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.